Endgame Gear launched the XM1r at the start of 2021. It's the third iteration of the XM1 mouse, with each adding features or improving areas of community critique. The XM1r is available in 4 colour options, and I'll be reviewing the Dark Frost, which is the transparent matte edition. First off, this is not my typical mouse, but I was recommended it by a friend who I trust, who really enjoys it, so I thought I'd give it a try, and have been using it for around a week now. What was immediately apparent as soon as I held this mouse was the quality and the craft that went into its build. The clicks had absolutely zero post or pre-travel and really limited side wobble. There was no flexing or creaking, and the coating on the Dark Frost was excellent, with good grip and no fingerprint or oily residue left on the mouse from my hand. It's also one of the few wired mice to use a 3370 sensor, which was great news for Artisan RAID and mousepad users, as the 3370 has no spin-out problems like its cousin the 3389. The mouse skates offer flexibility for the smaller stock dots or the larger Zowie glide style, which I went for. I also opted to swap them out for core pads to see if there was any improvement or if it changed the glide, and in all honesty I think you can save your money here. There was little if any change from stock. The stock cable is the new Black Flex Cord 2.0, which was specifically made for the XM1r. I have to say, it's one of the best stock cords I've ever used, and again, absolutely no need to paracord this mouse. I happen to have a spare laying around from Paracable Mods, so again wanted to check out if there was any improvement or difference in game. I noticed none. Save your money unless you want a cosmetic swap or something to match your setup. The scroll wheel is quite small and far forward, which kind of reminded me of the Xtrify MZ1 and to a lesser extent the G-Wolves HSK, which are both mice I'm quite fond of. The XM1r does weigh quite a bit more than mice that I'm used to, especially for a wired mouse, clocking in at around 70 grams. I think this mouse is targeting the tactical shooter audience, similar to Vaxi, where 70 grams is very acceptable and in line with the competition, certainly for something this well built. I have to say it didn't feel too heavy due to the mid to large shell, and the weight was evenly distributed as far as I can tell. As far as I'm aware, the software for the XM1r hasn't left beta, so I didn't use it. I did update the firmware with the release listed on their website, as I'd heard reports of double clicking and lift-off distance related tracking issues on the stock firmware. Thankfully, the mouse does let you change polling rate and DPI using button combinations with a light indicator on the base to let you know what you've selected. Finally, the mouse uses pre-sorted KALE GM 8.0 switches intended to remove variance between mouse 1 and mouse 2 and ensure a consistent click feel. This was the first area that unfortunately didn't quite live up to the expectation for me. I'm quite familiar with more premium switches and have used either stock or installed pre-sorted 8.0 in several of my other mice. The XM1r KALE implementation felt very hollow and lacked tactility. The closest comparison would probably be the feeling of the G Pro Wireless or G Pro X once you've installed KALE 8.0s. This could absolutely be limited to my copy, but it was quite a disappointment after hearing so much praise about how good the XM1 clicks are. Here's what mine sounds like compared to a couple of other mice that, to me at least, have better implementation of KALE 8.0s. Moving on from talking specs, I really struggled with this shape. I usually opt for small, ultralight fingertip mice, so I knew going in that the XM1r wasn't my typical mouse. I had hoped that being such a premium and widely praised mouse, it might convert me. But unfortunately, even after a week of adjustment, I still couldn't find a grip that was comfortable, with a couple of areas specifically causing me issues. The sides, specifically the right side of the mouse, has a very sharp point towards the top that aggressively slopes inwards down towards the base, reducing from approximately 6.3 centimeters at the widest point to 5.7 centimeters at the narrowest. I really struggled to find a place to anchor my third and fourth fingers, with either having to curl to hook on the rear flare or interfere with the right mouse button. This was reduced a little when I switched to claw, but with 20 by 10 hands, I really struggled with this as it wasn't my typical or natural grip style. The other issue I had with this shape was the convex mouse 1 and mouse 2 buttons. After spending a lot of time recently using mice with comfort grooves, I think that's my natural preference now. I appreciate that some users carry that same sentiment towards comfort grooves. With a fingertip grip, deeper grooves allow me to laterally micro adjust a lot easier, and with the XM1R, I never really felt as in control as I'd like to be on these left to right micro adjustments. I'm showing the Xtrfy MZ1 again here as a stark comparison, with it having a small half pipe running down each mouse button. So I'll wrap this up starting with a summary of my thoughts. On the Pro side, it is exceptionally well built. That is undeniable. The mouse felt strong, no creak, and you can tell that love and craft went into it. Secondly, the paracord, the switches, and the skates are unlikely to need or indeed benefit from any aftermarket mods, so what you pay for the mouse is the final price. You won't need to be nickel and dimed on additional extras to make the mouse viable. There's various colour options and coating styles with some really unique looks and various options to suit every preference. And the mouse is fairly reasonably priced considering the competition and the market that it exists in at $59.99 US. In terms of room for improvements, the hollow sounding clicks that lack tactility. Now again, this could just be my copy, but as I don't have others to compare, I have to judge against what I have. Huge disappointment, and I really hope that that isn't the case for all the XM1R copies. Very subjective, but the shape didn't work for my fingertip grip, specifically the right side was super difficult. I think there's actually potential that if you claw grip and have the right hand size, this could be a really comfortable mouse. I also think there's maybe scope to reduce the weight just a touch, maybe around 60 grams, to make it a little bit more attractive outside of the core tack shooter audience that it's obviously marketed to. Finally, I'd like to expand a little bit more on my last area, and that is innovation. I want to share my thoughts on Endgame Gear more broadly and the XM1. I just keep hearing the phrase, don't let perfect get in the way of great. Whilst it isn't for me, the XM1R is a really great mouse, and that's what's frustrating, because regardless of the iterations and improvements Endgame Gear has obviously made to the mouse over multiple releases, the shape doesn't and is unlikely to ever work for me or any other person that the original XM1 didn't click for. I guess one way I like to think about the XM1 is as a pair of size 10 hiking boots. Endgame Gear have improved the laces, they've increased durability on the rubber sole, they've softened the lining to help your feet stay cool and breathe. If you're a size 13, these boots will never fit you, no matter how great Endgame Gear make them. What about if you're a track runner, or a dancer, or need something to go with a suit? Continuing to improve the XM1 has made it an increasingly better product for everyone that just happens to be in the market for a size 10 hiking boot. With just how great the XM1R is, my only hope is that Endgame Gear starts to consider making mice for anyone that isn't looking for a size 10 hiking boot.